Okay. So, this is our presentation. This is the Amish, and you can see it's by Stephanie B, Sarah D, Kylie H, Keelani H, Leah K, Melvin R, and Megan S. Ooh. General facts. The history of the Amish church began with the schism in Switzerland within a group of Swiss and the Alsatian Mennonite Anabaptists in 1693, led by Jacob Ammon to avoid religious persecution. Most Amish reject modern conveniences like electricity. Exceptions are necessarily related, and electricity is created by a generator or solar or wind power. Amish may use electricity for things such as keeping their milk cold, running power tools for a business or in their businesses, and changing batteries for their buggies. Most Amish end formal education in the 8th grade. Amish do not pay into Social Security or Medicare, nor do they collect benefits from them. Amish self-pay for services using a community pool of funds. Because the Amish don't pay payroll taxes, this can give them a competitive advantage in bidding for jobs. And last on this slide is Amish are masters at cooking Scrabble, shoe fly pie, chicken corn soup, Dutch cabbage rolls, and pot pies, donuts, and apple butter. Okay, and go to the next slide.
In the history of the Amish first arrived in America in the mid-1700s. The population grew steadily in the 18th and 19th centuries, and the population really began to thrive in the 20th century. Today, there's nearly 250,000 of people in America who are Amish. In 1865, the Amish community began to separate more. There were a group of more conservative Amish who clung to the old Ordnung or old order. They were dissatisfied with the more progressive Amish, and the more progressive Amish they became Amish Mennonites, and they were slowly welcomed and brought into Mennonite churches. In the 1910s, technology developed pretty fast, and the Amish began to ban telephones in their homes. Using a public telephone was permitted, but you could not own one. The ownership of cars was also not permitted. They're afraid that allowing the ownerships of cars would pull the community apart. They were allowed to ride as passengers, but not own or drive a car. And Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana is home to about 2/3 of the Amish population in America.
Good.
So the holidays the Amish celebrate, they believe in the Christian faith, so they celebrate holidays involving Christianity. They also celebrate American holidays such as Easter, Christmas, New Year's Day, and Thanksgiving. They do not celebrate holidays such as Labor Day or Memorial Day. One holiday they celebrate is Easter Monday. They believe Jesus died on a Friday, therefore making his resurrection on Monday. Another holiday they celebrate is Ascension Day. This holiday occurs 40 days after Easter as a celebration of Jesus' resurrection. Pentecost Day is another holiday specific to the Amish. This holiday is celebrated 10 days after Jesus has gone to heaven. So the Amish speak a dialect of German, which is commonly known as Pennsylvania Dutch. While the language is primarily English words, it contains features of German, such as the accent. Children in the Amish community are taught English in school, but Pennsylvania Dutch cannot be written, it is only spoken. Family is very vital to the Amish community. They normally have very large families, including 7 to 10 children. Their households are normally separated according to gender, making the husband the leader of the household. The women normally do not have full-time jobs outside of the house and usually take on household responsibilities. The elderly in the family help their adult children take care of their household.
The Amish nutrition. Amish consume a varied diet, including homegrown and store-bought foods. Nearly all Amish have a seasonal garden, which is tended by the women and children, and they use and grow those vegetables to provide for their family and to also sell in local towns. Amish often have livestock, providing meat for their families, and they typically raise chickens to obviously provide fresh eggs. Livestock often include cows as well, so they can keep a steady supply of dairy products and milk to feed the family and community. The Amish diet is typically high in carbohydrates, fats, and refined sugars, and Amish view mealtime as a family gathering. Work for the Amish. They have a wide range of occupations, including produce and dairy farming, remote family businesses, factory work, at-home shops, and sideline businesses, such as women and children making home goods to sell on the side of the road. Some Amish will even work outside their community if deemed necessary. And it is typical for the males to provide for their family, as the females tend to the home and children.
All right, some high-risk behaviors. As Steph said in the last slide, the Amish diet typically consists of foods high in fat and carbohydrates, which can lead to a lot of heart diseases and complications and cancer. Their diet also consists of a lot of refined sugar, and Amish adults are twice as likely to get diabetes as other white adults. The Amish are far less likely to get vaccinations. A study showed that between Amish and non-Amish children in 2005 to 2015, 90% of the Amish children were unvaccinated, and this can lead to Amish individuals getting admitted to hospitals for vaccine preventable diseases. And then in some cases, young Amish men take part in consumption of alcohol or other substances such as drugs. This is technically allowed before marriage and baptism, which is why it's most prominent in young males in the community. So then infectious diseases. So one of them is the maple syrup urine disease. It is an inherited metabolic condition, and it prevents the breakdown of certain amino acids in the body. This is especially common within the Amish community, occurring at a rate of 1 in 300 Amish individuals. And then poliovirus, this goes in hand with a high-risk behavior. This is a vaccine preventable disease that affects the central nervous system and causes paralysis. There have been no new cases in 26 years before 2005, when 5 Amish children were admitted to the hospital in Minnesota with this.
Amish healthcare. The Amish care about their health and trust that God is ultimately the one who heals them. They rely on the men of the family and grandparents to make the healthcare decisions rather than the individual receiving the care. And they do not utilize health care insurances. Instead, they rely on each other and payment plans when needing to pay for medical bills.
So I found 3 disparities in the Amish community. One is that they are exempt from Social Security and reject healthcare insurance, and also that they don't practice birth control or use of immunizations. They also have a higher, they have a higher life-threatening pregnancy rate due to the fact that they see illness as a failure to work rather than just a set of symptoms. Amish men typically outlive Amish women on average of 7 live births per woman, and reinforcing the rejection of preventive medicine and their low educational status. Higher education is prohibited. This implies that we as healthcare providers should make our language simple and clear to understand.
All right, so the Amish community believes in living their life according to God's will and emphasizes living right. This usually looks like living a very simple life surrounded with faith and dedication. They live simple and modest lives and separated from non-Amish communities. The Amish refuse to use many forms of technology or electronics, except for, like Sarah had said, with keeping milk cold and things such as that. In the Amish community, patients often need consent from the elders for any procedures that they may undergo. And the Amish belief system follows the Christian faith, so topics such as abortion, euthanasia, and assisted suicide are not supported.
So ethics and religion. The Amish are Christian Anabaptists, which means that they prefer baptizing adults between the ages of 17 and 22 years old instead of infants. The Amish do not believe in using birth control, like everyone has said, in vitro fertilization, having abortions, or fertility drugs. On top of that, purposefully sterile sex to them is considered a grave sin. They believe in God's will and that every child is a gift. Because the Amish view the heart as the soul of the body, they will refuse heart transplants, and in some cases, open heart surgery. However, if the surgery is necessary for a child to survive who has not been baptized yet, it is considered okay. The Amish wear traditional and plain clothing to show their lack of vanity and express their obedience to their church. They also show their obedience and lack of vanity in their homes by not allowing musical instruments during religious practices. And the Amish church has a set of strict laws called the Ordnung, which means order, discipline, rule, arrangement, and organization. This regulates private, public, and ceremonial behavior as a communal blueprint for everyday life. Religious services are held on a rotating basis in family homes and barns, and there are typically 25 to 40 families in each church district. Also in each district, there is one bishop, 2 to 4 preachers, and 1 elder. And the Amish believe that shunning is a form of tough love and therefore will excommunicate themselves from family members who refuse to repent, confess their sins, and or adhere to the Ordnung. Holy Communion is celebrated every autumn and spring for the Amish, and during this time, sins are confessed, reaffirming vows are made to uphold the Ordnung, and pairs of members wash one another's feet while congregating and singing together.
Finding strength, they find their strength through their faith in God, and they live their lives with the mindset that life on earth is a preparation for eternal life after death.
So marriage in the Amish community, dating normally begins around the age of 16, and they get married typically between 20 and 22. Boys and girls will often socialize at functions like frolics, church, and home visits. There are activities on Sundays where they do night singing, and after the singing, they socialize for another hour or two. If a boy is interested in one of the girls, he will typically offer her a ride home. Dating amongst the Amish is typically enjoying a buggy ride together or doing outdoor activities together in a group. The Amish community does not allow divorce, so dating and being courted is taken seriously. In more progressive Amish communities, they have been allowing young couples to go out and have a night in the town for dinner. Engagements are typically private. A couple that is newly engaged oftentimes will hide it from their parents until July or August, and the family then keeps the secret until October, where they will announce it at an October church service. They kind of like give little hints away though, as I was reading, because they end up planting a lot of celery, because celery is really used in their weddings. So that's how typically the community can tell a couple is preparing for marriage. The weddings typically take place on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The Amish need a full day to prepare for the wedding the day before and need a full day to allow for cleanup after the wedding. Neither of these days can fall on Sunday, as this is sacrilegious. The wedding dress, the bride will often make her own dress, and it's typically blue or purple. After, the wedding dress is typically used for Sunday church wear, and they're buried in this dress when they die. Amish weddings are typically very large, ranging anywhere from 200 to 500 guests. They last all day, and there's a lot of celery involved, as it is used to decorate tables and in various dishes for their meals. They have supper and dinner together as well.
Death in the Amish. The Amish prefer to die at home rather than like in a care facility or in a hospital. The Amish community will support each other by visiting the family of the deceased at their home. They provide acts of kindness, prepare food, help with household chores, provide emotional encouragement, and pay their respects. They will have a very simple funeral service, and they'll place the body in a plainly built wooden coffin, and they'll put it in either a private plot on the family's farm or in a cemetery of a church. And they view death as a normal transition because of their faith, and they view life on earth as a preparation for eternal life.
So folk health. God is considered to be the ultimate healer, which is one of the reasons why many Amish are reluctant to seek medical attention unless absolutely necessary. And folk medicine plays a key role in the health and well-being of Amish communities. Some home remedies that the Amish will turn to in times of sickness include medical herbs and in ointments, salves, teas, essential oils, and bitter tonics. And I was also reading that vinegar, like anything, it can heal anything, apparently. So burn and wound ointment is a prevalent folk remedy widely used for burns, abrasions, and lacerations in the Amish community. And it is comprised of various mixtures of burdock leaves, honey, lanolin, olive oil, wood oak bark, and beeswax. For common complaints of back pain, headache, and tension, the Amish may turn to chiropractic and massage therapy to assist with healing. And the Amish believe in developing habits such as being active, eating a healthy diet, and taking vitamins to maintain their physical health. And although it's not as popular of a practice as it once was, when severe sickness or trauma arises, the Amish have been known to turn to a form of faith healing known as Bruwaki. This form of faith healing utilizes spells, charms, amulets, and incantations to promote wellness. The Amish often come together and sing in prayer and perform song and prayer if one of their family members is hospitalized.
With genetics, there's something called a founder effect that basically means that genetic variation is lost over time just due to a limited number of founding individuals. This is a major principle in rare diseases for the rest of the world and why these rare diseases are so prominent in the Amish community. As we said earlier about maple syrup urine disease, it's as high as 1 in 300 chance, and in the normal worldwide, it's 1 in 100,000 chance for infants. With Tachycyst disease, it's a genetic disorder that involves the destruction of nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord. This affects the functions of the nerve cells and causes the child to lose muscle control. And this can lead to death, paralysis, and blindness, and a big risk factor for the older Amish community.
So Amish women will typically give birth to 6 to 9 children, but this number can also get much higher. I found various resources that said different numbers, but I think the average was like 6 to 9, maybe 10. The Amish do not believe in using birth control, so this number can actually climb a lot higher. As I said, this was the general consensus. Pregnancy and childbirth are part of everyday life, and Amish women do not fear it or the pain. Some people refer to the Amish women as pros of childbirth. Amish women do give birth at home. This is oftentimes due to costs and comfort. Amish families do not have commercial insurance to help cover the costs, and they have very large families. The Amish prefer and are more comfortable with midwives and doctors that know and understand the Amish culture. The word pregnant is taboo. They would prefer to say with child, but they do not openly talk about their pregnancy. The wife may tell her husband and the midwife, and in more progressive communities, maybe a friend or two, and they tell a friend or two or their husband and so forth, and the whole community will end up knowing about the pregnancy, but they will not talk about it in front of children or openly. In some cases, a maid is hired, and a maid is a single Amish woman that lives with the family for 4 to 6 weeks, helping to take care of the chores and the children while the mother tends to the baby after birth.
So for healthcare stats, only about 4% of Amish people are obese compared to the national average of 36.5. Amish children are 1/3 as likely to be non-obese, according to the 2012 study. This also means that 50% lower rates of type 2 diabetes. They found that cardiovascular disease is one area that Amish don't have an edge in, along with blood pressure and heart disease rates. They're slightly higher than other populations. Some of this is attributed to the Amish diet, which is heavy on pancakes, eggs, sausages, meat, potatoes, gravy, and bread.
We're excited, and that is it for this. Do we go over the fact sheet or do we just turn that in? Okay. So
I don't think so. I think we just turn that in. The fact sheet I think has all the same things in the PowerPoint.
I'm gonna